Welcome to day 6 of the school year. Let's go ahead and fill in the square for that 6th day. Back in. Alright, and let's start with our beginning fraction. It starts with our denominator of 180, because that's how many total school days. And we are currently on day 6. So first we're going to look at that 6 and see is it prime or composite. It is not circled, so that means it is composite. And that means we need to do the prime factorization for both our numerator and our denominator. Let's go ahead and start with 180. Prime factorization, we're only looking at prime numbers. So we'll want to start with our smallest ones, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and then just see if we need to go from there. So we start with our lowest one, which is 2. We're going to use our upside down division. 180 divided by 2, or half of 180, we get 90. I'm going to do 2 again because it ends in an even number. Half of 90, well, I can't do half of 9, but I can do half of 80, which is 4. And then I'm left with 10, and half of 10 is 5. This ends in a 5, so that means I can divide by 5. I get 9. That's divisible by 3. We just keep going until we finally get a prime number on the outside. Once we do, our prime factorization is done. So now we're going to do it with our numerator. Well, it's even, so I can divide by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 is prime, so we are done. So our prime factorization for our numerator is 2 times 3. For our denominator, from least to greatest, 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 5. Let's see, do we have some numbers in that prime factorization that are the same in both the numerator and denominator? Yes, we do. 2 times 3. So 2 times 3 equals 6, so our greatest common factor is 6. Okay, and a way to actually look at it, this is another way to simplify. This would be if we divided by 2 and 3, we'd end up with 1 up here. And here we'd have 2 times 3 times 5. If you multiply those, you get your denominator. Okay, so just another way to look at it. So we know 6 is our greatest common factor, so let's go ahead and make our groups of 6. It does not matter what your groups look like, just as long as you have 6 squares in each group. And you don't want to have shaded with unshaded, because then you end up with a fraction and a fraction, and that just makes it complicated. Let's go ahead and do groups of 6. Again, you don't have to do it the way I do it. So I'm using the multiplication strategy of that area model, 2 times 3. Because 2 times 3 gives me 6. Alright, when we get all our groups, let's count them up and see what our new denominator is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 is our new denominator. And that is what you get when you get 2 times 3 is 6 times 5 is 30. Our numerator, well, how many total groups of 1 do we have? 1. Okay, now let's go ahead and use our algorithm to prove it another way. We've used a model, we've used prime factorization. Now we're going to use division. We're going to divide by our greatest common factor. We put the whole thing into groups of 6. We also put the shaded area into groups of 6, so that's always going to be the same. Okay, so let's start with our area model for 180 divided by 6. Let's see, let's try 6 times 20 gives me 120. Subtract. Numbers the same, zeros a game, more on top, no need to stop. Numbers the same, zeros a game. Put the 60 up here. That's 10 times 6 gives us 60. Numbers the same, zeros a game. So now we add up these partial quotients. 10 plus 20 plus 10 is 30. Okay, so now it's time to do our 6 divided by 6. Well, 6 times 1 is 6. Numbers the same, the zeros a game. We always want to check our division. So we have our divisor times our quotient plus our remainder. But since the identity property of addition says when you add 0 it stays the same, we don't need to actually add 0 because we're going to end up with the same result. So I'm just going to do my divisor times my quotient. 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times 3 is 18. That matched my dividend of 180, so check. And now I'm going to do 6 times 1, so divisor times quotient plus remainder. And again, my remainder is 0, so the identity property of addition still applies here. And this is actually the identity property of multiplication. Any number multiplied by 1 stays the same. Check. Matches that dividend. So our numerator is definitely 1 and our denominator is definitely 30. Let's go ahead and fill in our data collection page. Trimester 1, week 2. Today is 8/15/19. And our fraction for today is 1/30. Okay, let's go ahead and get out our number line. Okay, we did groups of 6, but it's 1/30th, so this is our first piece out of 30 total pieces. And if we look, we have an equivalent fraction at 3, that's a common factor. At 2, a common factor. 6 is our greatest common factor. And then at 6 180ths. Those are equivalent fractions. Okay, let's go ahead and put the number line away, erase your worksheet, and thank you for joining me.